This week in the field, bringing order to chaos, shooting in very busy environments. Hi everyone, I'm Scott Davenport and welcome to In the Field. Thanks for joining me today. Really quick, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, I'd really appreciate it if you did. It'd be nice for you to be a more permanent member of our little corner of the internet here. So today, talking about busy environments. A couple of weeks ago, maybe a little more than a couple now, I was shooting in Northern California. And redwood forest was one of the areas, and that's a very challenging environment to shoot in. You're dealing with dappled light if you have a sunny day, as well as just a busy environment. There's trees everywhere, of course, the ones that are upright, but there's also all sorts of things that are fallen over and interesting pieces of wood, grand, large, gigantic sweeping scapes if you're pointing your camera up, but trying to get some type of composition that can either capture the grandeur of the scene or just hone in on something different. It can be tough. So let me show you a little tiny bit of footage that I grabbed here, and then I'll come back and show you some of the photos I did come away with. Shooting the Armstrong Woods today. And I've done what you would expect, shots like this with the path of the trees and shooting up toward the trees as well. I'm trying to find some more intimate subjects, a little bit different than just the shots of the forest. And I saw a twist of wood that looked kind of interesting. I'm going to go check it out again with a fresh set of eyes. So this is this twist of wood that I saw. And at first glance, it's interesting as you get up close to it. It's got all these different details and so forth. But taking a step back, I'm starting to see kind of a skull, a face, an eye socket, a nose, and this is almost like a craggly looking beard. So I'm going to try to angle up on this thing and see what I can do to make this come to life. I spent quite a bit of time working with that interesting stump of a fallen tree that to me looked like a profile and really like a skull. I took some wider shots of it, I took some tighter shots of it. And let me show you the one that I've processed and worked on. And I had to work on this both compositionally and post-processing a lot. And it's probably one of the reasons I'm showing it to you, because I did spend a lot of time on it. It's really not the strongest photo I've ever done, but I found it to be interesting, and so I'm sharing it. Now, the other things that I did as well is trying to, the classic shot, shooting straight up toward the trees, and I didn't find one of those that I particularly liked in the set that I came away with. But one other thing was putting myself into the photo and adding a sense of scale. And so here's one more photo where I just set the timer on the camera, put it on the tripod, and walked out into the scene and looked up so that I'm kind of creating a leading line for the viewer with where my gaze is going up to the trees. So those are kind of some of the ideas that I came away with. Later in my trip, I was also shooting in other wooded areas, and something else I found to be helpful is using a very shallow depth of field and finding either an interesting tree or a tree branch, any type of leaf or flower or moss that was something that could be isolated by using a very shallow depth of field. And I'm talking like 2.8, 2.2, 1.8, where the only thing that's really in crisp focus is what your lens, or what you're pointing at directly with your focus point. Then everything else gets softer, and that gives you that isolation. So that a couple of ideas if you are shooting in busy environments. This could be city streets. This could be a forest. This could be anywhere there's a lot of activity, and you're trying to bring some order to the chaos. So at the risk of repeating myself, the tip of the week is trying to bring some order to chaos when you're shooting in busy environments. If you can capture the busyness of the scene in one wider shot, and that makes sense, a crowded area that is the story of the photo, great. But if you can't, try either isolating a subject, finding something more interesting, or using a shallow depth of field to isolate your subject. For a frame of reference, that stump that I found was probably about the size of me, so it wasn't huge, but it certainly wasn't small. So that was a kind of an easier one to spot. But Other things might be just, the size of your fist, and focusing in on those and making those, kind of larger than life. And that's going to do it for this week in the field. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you did, let me know somehow. Comments on the video below, questions through my website. Love getting questions. Hopefully I'm helping another photographer out by answering you. I can tell you that your questions definitely help me grow as a photographer too. And that's kind of the whole point. Upside for everybody, win-win. Well, until next time, my name's Scott Davenport. Happy shooting. And that will do it for this week in the field. I hope you have enjoyed it. And if you did, please let me know. Snowflow. Sounds like those weird creatures from Doctor Who where everything they say ends in O.